Thank you all for coming. Appreciate the crowd here today. I think we're all set on the Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is Town of Reading, Vermont, Select Board meeting June 12th, 2023. You guys have any changes to the following agenda?
I do not.
Bob?
I do, unless you're going to mention it.
I'll mention it.
Okay.
Okay, minutes of the May 8th, 2023 Select Board.
They're going to make a change to the agenda.
Okay, the change to the agenda, we're gonna go into executive session after the meeting to discuss the employee benefits.
Go for it.
Okay, minutes of the May 8th, 2023 Select Board meeting. You should have a packet of those. Any changes or additions?
Move they be approved as printed.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
Total revenue was $16,301.43. Total expenses were $114,809.85. As of the end of May, we had $795,231.91. And total delinquent taxes owed to the town is $40,358.69, and actually that's probably about $1,000 less. We just had a couple payments come in today.
Nice.
And a couple things I do want to bring up. Year end is this month. So if anybody has stuff out there on budgets, they need to get them in for bills. Sam's renewal is due July 25th, and I'm going to start working on that first part of July.
What was that? I missed it.
Sam's renewal.
Oh.
We need to remind people that agendas need to be to me by the Wednesday before the week of their meeting to get posted on the website in a timely fashion. And if anybody is signing up for conferences or trainings of any kind, it would be nice if I was notified, so when bills come in, I know that it's okay to pay them, instead of me having to chase people. That's it.
I'll accept the slap, Callista.
No,
Got it.
I already did you once.
Yeah, you already slapped me once.
It's me.
You are one of them, Jeremy. That's it.
Question. Have you made the last payment to the school?
Yes, that was why it was 42,000. That's why my expenses was 114.
Okay. So that's out of the 795.
Yes, it is.
You've heard the treasurer's report. Any comments or adjustments?
Move that it be accepted as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Action items. We'll start right off with the Energy Committee.
Great, thank you. So, I'll take it. Chris here, Kevin's here, to answer any questions as we go. As promised last time, we said we'd get you a proposed set of options a couple of weeks in advance, so I hope you've had a chance
We
to
did.
read it. I don't
Read
know,
it.
would you like an executive summary? I know you've had a chance to read it. We could just go right into discussion as you prefer, so.
I think I've looked at it. I personally think it'd be helpful for everybody else in the audience too to hear just a real quick
Yeah.
overview of
Okay.
the work you've done, because Brian, I'll tell you, you guys put together a phenomenal collection of data and proposal, I think.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Appreciate that, for sure. And there are other copies that we have here too of the proposal. Anyone wants to see those? Any questions from anybody? Yeah. We're all done there. That's all I have. Have fun.
There's a lot of.
So maybe just briefly, we started this probably 9 months or so ago in response in part to the town survey that indicated actually the highest, the one question that got the highest amount of yes votes of all the things in the town survey for 2019 was a desire to see the town explore renewable energy as an opportunity for the town, and in particular name town buildings or properties of the town as places to potentially site them. And the town also, in the latest town plan, had some pretty big renewable energy goals. But third, and but I would almost say first in that also, we saw an opportunity to save the town money over time. So all this is really based upon making sure that there's financial soundness to any proposals that we bring forward. So we started that conversation with the select board, explored some options in and around the firehouse as being the most suitable area, explored the roof for reasons I won't go into. We're not on the roof, and we're now looking at property behind just behind the firehouse. And so, again, with the support of the select board and in communication, we submitted, we put out a request for proposal to ask for installers to basically create options for us to install an array behind the firehouse, situating it such that it would have the most minimal impact on the garden plot as it exists right now, and you can tuck it up against the north side of that plot, and designed to ideally meet 100% of the town's current energy use, which is about 45,000 kilowatt hours per year if you take all of the municipal buildings that the town owns. And so we put out that request for proposal, and we got back 8 different options from 3 different installers. And as you can imagine, these proposals come back and they're not quite apples to apples, so we did a little bit of work to create an apples to apples comparison across the different proposals. And that allowed us to zero in really quickly on some proposals to make the most sense based on some key criteria. Number one was you want to start out, we believe, looking first at the cost per watt. So that is, just basic, or does any discounts or anything else apply? Like, what is that about cost per watt of the array? Total cost as a consequence of that. Was the array big enough to meet 100% of the town's energy needs as it stands right now from an electricity perspective? And then one of the other things that came up in one of our discussions was the desire to see proposals that emphasize US-made components all the way through. So we had asked that in RFP. We heard specifically from one of the installers, they spoke to that. And so we included that as an option as well. I will talk about all this in a minute. And then what we were looking for is, okay, so with that, what's the time to break even? That is when we get our money back in terms of what we've invested in the array. And then what's the sort of savings, or basically the return that we will see after that time at which we break even? How much savings will we see as a town over the warranty life of the array? So that's basically, they're standing behind the product for X amount of time. Anything that we're going to talk about here is for 25 years, so the warranty did 25 years. I will tell you that those solid state systems like solar panels kind of they can last a lot longer than that. We don't have a ton of experience with it, but enough to know that that's going to be true. And so there's probably savings out beyond that, but I wouldn't say anything past warranty life because that's what we know. So that's what we did, and this proposal that some of you have sort of speaks to some of what I just said, as well as our analysis of the proposals. And the no pun intended, like the money slide is the one that's the table in the appendix here, which really summarizes in an apples to apples comparison, and with us making sure that we put in some numbers that weren't necessarily in the proposal. But we know could well be there. They're all included in the financials that are put here. So, based on all that information and based on those criteria that I told you we were looking for, the Energy Board felt very comfortable putting forward 2 proposals, both from Catamount Solar, Catamount 2 and Catamount 4, which are highlighted in green on that table. I just want you first, and let me first tell you what the difference between those two. They both make 100% of the current electricity used for Reading. I remember when they were being projected to do so. They were the lowest cost per watt. Actually, Catamount 2 was the lowest cost per watt on the face. And then the third thing is what's different between Catamount 2 and 4 is that 4 guarantees that the panels that will be put on that array are made in the US. whereas Catamount 2 can't necessarily. It is from a manufacturer that has U.S. presence and is growing, but they just won't guarantee that in their supply chain it's 100% U.S. made. And so there's the financial impact of that. So if you just, so I mean, that's the sort of the high level summary. These are the two that we centered on. Maybe just the last little bit on the financials before we go into anything, which is we wouldn't be able to have this conversation even a year ago about the possibility of doing this and having it make any sense for the town to consider this versus, say, a private investor that would invest in an array like this, and all the benefits to anyone who owns solar now to be able to take advantage of, because the Inflation Reduction Act hadn't been passed, but now it's been passed. And basically what that said was that towns, like tax-paying citizens, could have been able to do for a long time. Towns, other not-for-profits, now qualify for what's called a direct pay, 30% direct pay back on the total cost of the array. So I'm going to use round numbers for a second. These are both in the, just north of $100,000 arrays on their sort of face value costs to the town. Then there's 30% that comes back to the town in a direct pay. It's literally a check that's written to the town. That's within anticipated in the law. Catamount 4, the US made, you see, is a little more expensive to start out. So if you get 30%, it's still more expensive. If it qualifies, there's additional adders that are contemplated in the Inflation Reduction Act, and one of them is this one that is US made, and there's an additional 10% that comes back from that, and so that makes it pretty much cost parity with Catamount 2, assuming that it does qualify for that adder, and that's what's in the yellow. That yellow row is showing the financials of Catamount 2, but now with that additional adder. Which is my last comment, and then we can have a conversation. We're at the front end of what Treasury defining the exact criteria for on number one, how exactly do towns get their money back to that 30%? What form do you fill out is not yet been defined. And secondly, exactly what US made is has not been totally put out in guidance either. So you will see that in our recommendations, we've said, we would recommend that the town consider these proposals, US made or not, and it's something that should be discussed. But should the town wish to do this, we would want to put in something in the contract language that says, we would not want to be on the hook until we know that there's clarity on exactly how that's going to get done. And if so, we would proceed. And there's various paths in there that I outlined in here. That is contemplated any day now. The initiating guidance is around pieces of the Inflation Reduction Act all throughout the spring. We expect to see something very soon on both of those elements. What's that form going to look like? Number one, I don't think anyone worries that that's not going to apply, but just wanted to be out here. Again, for my house, I want to see that before I did anything, and I feel like that's something I think about all this. On the US made, it's another question too, and that'll probably be a separate guidance. How do you get the 30%? All right, that was a lot of words.
I just like about one footnote on the US thing. I personally, it doesn't matter where it's made, it's a pretty global supply chain, pretty complex to begin with. But because of the incentive places about that have now put on the table for US manufacturing, and because a lot of the manufacturing capability in the US is nowhere near as robust as it is in Korea, for example, it's quite possible we could be in a supply chain delay situation with US manufacturers, because I think the supply is going to, demand is going to exceed supply without a doubt. To be prepared for that and go down that path. I mean, I'd love to be wrong on that, but I think it would be prudent to put that in the back of your mind. Think about that also. The last thing I was on, I spent 25 years in the electronics industry, and I think everyone here owns a flat screen TV. None of them are made in the US, they're all made either in Korea or China. Most of them are made in Korea. They really mastered that technology quite well. They've done the same thing with solar panels. But I don't have any issues with Korean-based manufacturing. They're a very robust US political, economic, and military ally, unlike some of the other locations.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
What's the, you get 4 to 6 months on permits
Yeah.
through the,
A&R.
A&R,
Yeah. And that's partly because the size of the array we're talking about just kicks us into that level of permitting. So,
Yeah.
so ironically, we're a little too big to be considered residential. unless we've been on the roof, that actually has a different side.
Yeah.
If we're not on the roof, we're a little too big to be just standard residential size, which doesn't have that permitting. And then we just kick over into where we have the permitting at a different level of scrutiny, and so we're tiny. So it's like almost like a commercial rate, like we're tiny for commercial.
Yeah.
So, some of the installers, actually, that's kind of what knocked them out, is that number one, they're either they just do residential in one case, so that might have proposing half the size of the array that we're talking about, because that kind of fit their residential size. And others were willing to bid on the commercial, but they wanted to transfer a lot of the costs of permitting onto us as part of that, and their costs for a commercial site that's that tiny don't really make sense. You know, if it was a giant array, we probably the whole cost would be any difference. But at the cabinet said, no, you know, it's basically any simple. It's got to cost postage, you know, a little bit of office work. You know, we may, depending on what the ANR says, have to work with a consultant to get an opinion on something related to the site of the array as it relates to the, you know, anything that might show up. Their initial survey, as well as what we looked at, you know, the ANR's got a pretty good website, we can look at the things that typically set off, like wetlands and streams. There's nothing in there that showed up on the ANR website. This is anywhere near any of those. The only one that came up at all was something that Bob had asked about, I don't remember, which is, are we in a floodplain or not? And again, even there, we're not, and the setback is perfect for that. So having us expect for that meeting, and they can just do those sometimes just by phone, and it might be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But they want to manage our expectations and say that can be 4 months. So
Mhm.
it just depends on what we hear.
How long is the Catamount pricing good for?
Well, so, and actually, I think in their proposal, it said through the end of this month, but I called him and talked to him and said, you know, we're not even having a meeting, and he said, don't worry about it, just let me know. So, so I should clarify, of course, if we go back, we were sooner on these numbers, but the energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, you
Yeah.
gave us 2 different modules
Yeah.
in this write-up. Does the Energy Committee have a preference of the 2?
Yeah, fortunately, we have a forum and they're here, so, you know, I think we did not, we felt like they both make sense. It was just, the US main had been highlighted while we were here, so we wanted to make sure that was not. You know, if I suppose a little sense of like, just a little simpler path would be, number one, I mean, the caveat two, is just cheaper on the face of it. We don't have to worry about whether or not we're going to qualify for that additional 10%. And I'll say it's pretty de minimis, but like just flag it, the Kenmah cells that are, you know, a Korean-owned company, but again, they're making these things also in the US and other places. They guarantee that the loss of production per year will not, for a panel, because they lose some amount of production each year. That's also built into this model. So we assume that all that's happening. But those are warranted to lose no more than 0.45% per year. The American-made ones are actually guaranteed to lose 0.55%. So, you know, not very much, but like they're going to lose a little bit more each year than the ones from Canada. Is what they're at least warranted. So,
and they will replace faulty panels.
yeah, that's right. And actually, the other thing Catamount did.
They Catamount will, or they the manufacturer?
Well, through their manufacturer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
is this just the Korean ones that will replace them, or is it the US ones? It's both?
Both. For panels, both. And actually, one of the things that Catamount did, which distinguished them as well from most of the other installers, was so there's 2 basic bits to an array. One is the panels, and that's basically solid state technology. There's the inverter that electricity is generated into AC device that we use, right? AC. So the inverters have moving parts, and they tend to go, and they'll go every, let's say 10, 15 years, about $1,500 to replace them when they go. But in this proposal, pricing of the proposal is Catamount basically buying inverter insurance, so they're warrantying out to 25 years on the inverters. They will replace those too, whereas most of the other ones in here were 10, 12-year inverter warranties. Again, paying for it in the sense of it's insurance, but they're also the most cost competitive even with that. So,
It sounds like number 2 is one of the higher preferences.
Yeah, it's certainly a simple and straightforward path without having to think about it. It's really qualified for the USDA, you know,
But I mean, we're both solid options,
but they're good. That's why we went up with these.
Yeah.
If you get the adder, they're at cost parity, you got USDA.
If that comes through,
If it comes through,
right? The
Yeah.
30% that you said will apply to both.
yeah.
Still, the details of that still have not been worked out for towns.
The details actually in terms of like qualifying
Yep.
are in there, and we're very confident in this fall.
Okay,
What doesn't exist is, I can't tell you today, here's the.
how you get
So we
the money.
they have checked in with you because they haven't provided guidance. on how to apply.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying, like, well, then I'm gonna pay anybody. So you do it, like, you know, we're gonna do this, we haven't, that we haven't. But it's going to happen.
the other footnote also is kind of what we're trying to do is kind of position the town to be kind of more toward the head of the line than the end of the line.
Yeah.
We think there's gonna be a huge increase in demand across the country.
So on this chart,
Yeah.
the American modules are the last 2 columns, I take it.
Yep.
Way I read it.
No, the last 2
So
rows,
if you look at
the last,
the color coded rows.
I don't know.
I'll
sure,
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
the last green row and the yellow row.
There you go. Yeah, and the last green row is the same as the yellow row, except that it doesn't include the potential additional tax benefit that is shown in the yellow row.
So for simplicity's sake, the 2 green rows of the recommendations we're bringing this select board into consideration.
So
And the
I go back
yellow
to-
row is really the same, it's the last green row, just with the
Yeah,
extra
exactly
addition that
right.
will come.
That's right. If you get the extra 10% adder, the economics, something like that,
Yep.
and when you then look at like the net cost of the town, which is in that the cost after rebate column. Then Catamount 2, which is not necessarily USDA versus Catamount 4 with the adder are about the same.
Right.
Right.
What was your question, Bob?
So I go back
Yeah.
to my original question
Yeah.
of the 2 green lines, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Recommended Catamount 4.
Of the 2 green lines, I think what we were discussing is we would say Catamount 2 is the simplest path forward.
Okay.
There's one less variable in there, which is
And those are the US made modules,
they're
No,
not
those are
guaranteed. Catamount 2 is not guaranteed to be USDA.
not
They
guaranteed.
could, yeah, they could.
So let me ask you guys, if we go down this road, what is the mechanism of funding that we use for the town? Because we don't have a budget line right now
Correct.
for solar, right?
No.
So what do we do about that?
It would have to be a bond or a loan.
Okay.
And depending on the length of payback, it might have to be a bond. I think the select board can go up to 5 years on a loan.
Okay,
Beyond that, I think it becomes a bond.
You had a pay process in here, it was 10% for signing the contract, 40%. I don't know, see where it is. 40% when they start the installation, 50% at completion.
That's familiar to me. To be honest, I don't.
I saw it in here.
Remember that right? I'm just looking through the Catamount. Yeah,
yeah,
that's down that way.
it's right at the beginning of the catalog, just before all the picture charts there.
Okay,
Hey, Gordy, when I had that conversation with him about, look, we don't know how to get the money back yet. I can signing on and paying you 10% until we were guaranteed to get that direct payback. That's where I heard from him saying, at the time we put language in there. You know, he said at most we want to make sure that we get covered for maybe up to $1,500 if we were to get into the fees on permitting that they would have incurred. It could be as low as the cost of postage, or it could be we have to get a consultant in talk to you again. But previous budget.
And if it's 4 to 5, 6 months before it happens,
Which is why I was asking about how long this pricing is good for.
after you sign the contract, I think the price is
Yeah.
stable.
So when does the 30% direct pay, you probably said it and I missed it, but when does that kick in plus the 10% US made bonus payment kick in?
I don't have the details on exactly how that's what we're waiting on.
Oh, okay.
Treasury has not issued its guidance to say, this is exactly how it's gonna go down. And here's the form and here's the expected, so.
But basically to start, if we took either one of these, it would be the price of either 108,000 or 124,000 that we'd have to
Yes.
guarantee.
Yeah, that's right, 111 or 127, have not seen that out before.
There's 2 green ones.
It's total cost, that's the total cost.
Oh, yeah.
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 And what we're saying is we wouldn't do any of that until we knew what the 30% mechanism was, so that we knew count on that.
And we could sign a contract you're saying that would say something along the lines of subject to.
Yep.
Completing, right.
It won't be 10% either, like basically, I do think we should. Just covering the cost up, and I can set whatever maximum we like it could be 500, it could be 1,000, but like for their fees. Which would all be credited towards it, should you go forward, but the whole thing fall apart because, I don't know, like they discover something over there. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, right. I don't know what they find, but like, we're not going to make this, if there's anything, they look at it.
To answer one other question,
Yeah.
in looking at those numbers, in all my years as a select board person, we've never done a bond
Yeah,
in Reading.
yeah,
I don't know how complicated that is, but with these numbers, and if we can do a 5-year loan,
yeah,
that's very simple.
yeah,
We call the bank, and as long as our credit rating is good, we get the money. So I'm kind of leaning towards just a loan. That's just me.
Bond would be very complicated.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, the nice thing about the 5-year period is you're pretty close to the payback period on this whole performance, so it's, you're fairly close.
Savings on electricity.
what's that?
The savings on electricity help paying for the loan.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, no, absolutely. I would want to just. When we had terms on that, if we were interested in that's the path going, I can redo the financials also to show them, it's not gonna look very different, there's a financing cost to presume associated with that. So.
And Stone is very committed to it, he's got a municipality, so I don't think he's gonna have any friction from that Stone.
Sure. So what are you looking for from the select board right now?
I think we want to give you a thumbs up. We just need to be clear about what we're giving you a thumbs up on. So.
You want us to put something in the form of a motion on the floor, or what would you like us? I mean, first of all, do you have a preference for an option?
Paramount 2 is okay with me.
I think if that's the recommendation from the people that
Yeah.
have done all the work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why would we
You're-
jump
you're
in
more
at this point
knowledgeable
in
than we
time
are.
to change it?
Well, can I make a motion
So-
to that effect?
No, it's gotta
Depends on
come
what you say in the motion. So let's hear what you're gonna say, Bill.
It's gotta come from us, Bill.
Okay.
All right.
I'll sit through this.
So how do we want to word this? So I think we're leaning towards the Catamount 2 proposal. Right?
They are. So
Okay,
we are.
so let's, personally, before I heard the discussion, after having just read this, I would have been leaning towards the Catamount 4 from US made, but having had a little bit more discussion and background and kind of the thinking behind the words here, I'm fine with Catamount 2 as well.
I had the same opinion.
So you're gonna move that they proceed in investigating Catamount 2 and
Is that the right approach, is continue to move to proceed to investigate, or to put together a proposal for us to sign, consider? What's the next step?
I guess either one will work. As
mean, I-
long as we get the intent out there so that they can go ahead and move forward.
Essentially draft up a purchase order, essentially, right?
I'm always in favor of just, let's move forward instead of continuing to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the president will vote to do this.
so whatever the next step is to actually take a business step, if that's to put together a proposal for us to consider to sign a purchase order, whatever that is.
I think it would be a letter of intent. So like,
Okay.
Say there would be a letter of intent with them, Catamount. I might offer that we consider provisos along the lines of the ones that we've articulated, which is we don't want to be subject to 10% due upon signing, but rather we'll cover your fees up to, you can pick a number for initiating the permitting process for a mill like this,
Mhm.
and locking in the pricing as dictated here, and that further continuing further would require that we have clarity on the 30% direct pay voter format and assurance that we qualify, so that we remain comfortable and qualified, and that permitting was like that's kind of
Okay.
that's
So-
we could get a letter.
So then, to be clear, I'll make a motion that the Energy Committee put together a letter of intent for us to consider signing that has the caveats in it that we just discussed during this meeting. Is that reasonable?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yep.
And can that be reviewed by the select board before the next meeting in some fashion, or can you designate some person and Calista to do the review? Again, I'm just trying to not lose a month before we
Yeah,
can
can
get
we-
out the door.
Can we do this via email?
I would say probably we ought to have a meeting,
Yeah.
special meeting.
Special meeting?
When you're ready,
Yeah,
give us,
Yeah. Then
We
we'll
have-
warn it and have a
what's
special
our,
meeting.
what's our posting deadline? 24 hours? Yeah. So give us 2 or 3 days notice.
Okay. And just a question on the financing side of that whole thing. So
We will look into the term that we can get for the 3 years, 5 years, whatever, but the loan. Yes, start with a loan and then refinance if we need to.
Okay. Is it at all of interest for me to inquire whether Catamount also have?
What was that, Brian?
Catamount may also either themselves.
Financing available.
Through a credit union be able to offer financing. I've seen that on personal solar arrays before, where they'll offer
Mhm.
financing, so I can at least inquire, if you want to have that in the mix for options.
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay,
Look,
great. We'll go ahead on this.
A question.
Yes, sir.
You explored, any alternative financing or additional financing in terms of grants? USDA has a lot of money out, offering rural towns, projects like this. So would something like that help?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I also asked my fellow committee members to weigh in here. As specifically funding directly for solar for a project like this, we now have something that directly applies for that. There are other grants that relate to things like weatherization of buildings and preparation for application. There are other things that are coming down the pipe, and we're actually quite active on that right now. We're trying to get in the pipe on some Vermont funding that's become available. But they want to encourage like so
That shouldn't be applied. If money comes through,
yeah.
after, can that be applied?
So it can't be applied to the cost of this array, unfortunately. It would be more applied, in fact, their intent is to cover the entire cost of, say, if we weatherize the library and did heat pumps in there as their full source heating and cooling, or did more with this building. Those things could in theory be covered higher. And we hope to bring something like that.
The program I'm referring to is called the MERP program, that's Municipal Energy Resilience Program. Their priorities are for air sealing and insulation. So the top of that, 42 million pipeline, we got the town position to apply for as much money as we can for all the town buildings, for possible exception of town farm. And, but I don't think any of that money is to go to solar. And I've worked with a lot of USDA grant programs, that engaging housing focused, and of course the housing air focused, as anything for low families, there's not much that I'm aware of money available for publicly owned buildings from the USDA.
We were just at a symposium on rural village improvements. Yeah. And there was a speaker, I got a card through the state, and I'll get it. Yeah, maybe the information. There might be some new available.
Thank you.
Good. Brian, I just really want to thank the whole committee for the work that you guys did. It's really phenomenal.
Those people are finding that, like,
I think the majority of the work was sent by our speakers this evening. Thank you, Brian.
Do the residents have any questions about this solar array cost and what the potential is for it? It's gonna cost $111,000 for the Catamount 2. That's the total cost before any rebates. It's good for a 25-year life, and the net electricity savings over 25 years is gonna be $133,424. Those are pretty big numbers.
Yeah, that's net of you get all of the 77,000 back. And then
Yes.
right around year 11, it's just all free electricity.
Yeah, year 11 is all paid off.
It's sort of like prepaying for your electricity.
Yep.
For 11 years, and then you get
Free electricity.
free electricity for the next 14 years
Yep.
plus, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, as I understand, is consistent with our town plan for going more green.
For sure,
Right. So-
I mean, again, like, number one was,
Yep.
town said, let's go, explore these options.
Yep.
Here's some places to look at it. Number two, we got explicit goals, in this. I do have to say, another third part is like, we got, from my standard was interested in this, did a story already, that we were exploring it, we didn't ask them to do it, they found our RFP and started asking questions, but it'd be a nice little thing for us to talk
Absolutely.
about as a town,
Yeah.
right? Need to take a step forward.
Yep.
Early in this process of gaining these kinds of funds, I think it'd be great.
I just also want to publicly thank the fire chief for his support of this project too, because we're hooking up the back of a fire like meters. So thank you, sir.
Oh, I didn't know the fire chief was involved in this. I need to change my vote then. Love you too.
So there's a motion on the floor to allow the Energy Committee to pursue the Catamount 2 design.
Put together a letter of intent
Yep.
for us to consider, yes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I seconded
You
it.
did, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can go back to work, Brian.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the ARPA project, Bartley Field and the pump park. We've had some activity there. I think the crew has come in and cleaned up the site, got all the brush, got it chipped, got some tick control in there. One thing we found is our Bartley Field work is already covered under our present insurance program.
Nice.
So whatever that project is, we don't have to worry about another cost associated with it. We haven't got the insurance figured out for the pump park yet.
I want to say whoever the team was that was involved in the cleanup and everything, their place looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Really excellent job, amazing job, guys.
Everybody did a great job. Thanks for all the help, and Gordon, thank you for going up and chipping that for us. That was a giant pile of brush.
It was.
Probably killed about 10,000 ticks too.
I didn't have any ticks on me after that.
Amazing,
Yeah, yeah. But I left you the chips in case you needed them.
perfect.
Yeah, graded the road for you also.
Yes, we noticed that, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So what's the next step here?
Well, on the pump track, Avery's not here, is he? Avery Mornis? No. I met with Avery up at the town barn, and he took a look at the soil that I mentioned that we had up there. And it does have some large rocks in it, but we have a screen, and he feels that it is enough of a mixture between clay and dirt that it would work ideally for the base.
Perfect.
Which would then save us about $3,000 or thereabouts. And then there would still be a top coat that they would put on it of a sand mixture for the kids to actually write on.
Yeah, awesome.
So that'll help a lot on the total
Okay.
cost of the project.
That project cost originally was 9,000, you think they can cut it down to 6?
Well, I don't know if I would
Go that far?
go
Yeah.
that far, but it's certainly gonna save us a major portion of that $3,000 that's
Yeah.
on there. And we can screen it ourselves and trick it ourselves.
That'll be a plus.
So Gordy, I understand that you're meeting, you and Jerry tomorrow are meeting with VLCT.
Correct. Correct. To see what the potential insurance cost would be for the pump part. We tried to have it done before this meeting, but we didn't get to it.
Yeah.
He was, timing wasn't right.
Yep.
But anyways, I don't know when we can get the insurance quote from him or what he's gonna provide us for an insurance quote, but that would be something that we would need to know about what the costs are associated with that pump part.
This is VLCT you're meeting with, or this is the insurance company?
Well, he's an adjuster for VLCT.
He's also, he's in,
That's where our insurance is through.
is through VLCT?
Yeah.
Interesting, I didn't realize that. Okay,
And he is a loss specialist
okay.
that's been here before.
So when we're talking about next steps, that's what we're trying to do, is get the insurance side squared away for the
Right.
pump part?
But we've got two proposals, our
Yep.
proposals in front of us. I think we can do something with the
Bartley
Bartley
Field,
Field.
right.
But we can't do anything yet because we don't know all the costs associated with the pump part.
Okay. Yep, makes sense.
Make sense?
Yep, makes complete sense.
Is that the way you understand
It is, yep. So if we take them both separately, what's the next step on the Bartley Field?
Well, I think we could
Project.
approve the funding for ARPA for the Bartley Field tonight.
Okay. And again, what we're specifically doing there is just a refreshing renovation. We're gonna be carving out the base paths and just cleaning up the field. What's,
Yeah, I can speak to it a little bit.
yeah,
Basically, yeah, the infield part of that would be cutting out the grass and laying the actual infield in there. The material that is over in Castleton that is used commonly around here for base paths. The rest of it is basically facelift stuff, painting the dugouts, the backboard, or the backstop, some fence repair, the brush which we've already tackled, and the tick treatment. There might have been some.
Your bases.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we got, and in the original proposal there, I think you see it itemized the,
Yeah.
bases and so forth. So it's really, yeah, that stuff, minus the infield work, we could do. But I wouldn't want to really do anything as far as the infield's concerned until they're done, with the pump.
yeah,
Because I think.
because of the equipment they'll have to bring in, yep.
You thought it might really mess things up if they're going through it with big equipment.
Okay, makes sense.
May I ask a question about Vermont League Cities and Towns? I'm assuming that there are pump tracks throughout the state that must have some sort of insurance coverage as well. Is
Yeah.
there any way that inquiry can be made as to, like, how does Reading facilitate doing the same sort of thing? Because if Avery's business is doing this throughout the state, then they're all over the place.
Right.
That's a question we're gonna ask him tomorrow night.
Great.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question too?
sure.
It's Annie. Because I had talked to Avery about that same thing as well, and he has, is having signage that rides on wrist, wear a helmet, there's hours where they can and cannot ride. 4-9 or something, and they can't ride it when it's dark or something. And maybe that would cover it if we're already covered by the town's anyway.
That's something with Flash Mob.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
exactly the questions that are gonna be asked tomorrow night, Annie.
Right, okay, good. Yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
Okay, just touch on a couple more things while we're on the subject.
Yeah, go ahead.
We talked about possibly using the town for the trucking. It looks like we need 1 10-wheeler load. I just wanted to put that in the back of your head, that just remind you of that. And any work up there, I don't know if you noticed when you were grading the house that's at the bottom there, has a power service that's
Yep,
partially disconnected, so I know that's gonna have to be addressed in any sort of dump truck.
I think there was a limb on that too, wasn't there? Yeah.
It's the house got the attachments pulled out.
John, it mentions here that we were referred to Hatera in New York for footing. Any idea where in New York?
It's right near Castleton. I
Oh.
can give you it's
Okay,
it's right around the border. I don't, Terry O'Brien, the guy that runs the field down in Cavendish, he was the one that referred us to them as having
just,
great material and a decent price. And I think they took that into consideration when they gave us their price, so.
just over the line then, apparently.
Yeah, and the hitch with trying to get them to deliver is they have a trailer system that they use, and it would be too long for them to come up and deliver there.
Yeah.
So to get that, they don't have like 10 wheelers, they use some sort of contracting company that uses trailers.
Well, I think the town could certainly do it, but let me see if I can find somebody with a 10-wheeler to make one trip.
Yeah, I'll get you the exact address of that too.
Okay.
But here again, we may not want that, obviously, until they're done the pump track. I don't think we want it sitting there either way, so.
Okay, so you may not want it all the same day, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the pump track goes, that's fine, but when that's completed, that's when we'll need to clay. Because we can't really do any of that infield work until they're done trucking.
Then probably the smaller trucks will work better for you then.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay. Gordy?
Yes, sir.
Question on the pump track insurance. If you guys are gonna find out about that within the next couple of days, maybe you could take advantage of the upcoming special meeting that you're gonna have to make a
Yep.
decision on the pump track.
Yep.
So it doesn't wait as long.
Yep.
The other comment I would make is there's risky things happening up there already, you know, line drives with the baseball and slip bats and errant horseshoes and things like that, so I'm hoping it won't be, you know, that much beyond what already exists for risk out there.
One good thing is there's other pump tracks around the state being used, so I don't think that this is that much of a hurdle to jump through, but we would like to know what our cost would be.
Yep.
So can we approve one without the other, or do we have to hold off?
I think we can approve.
Two different projects.
Yes, let's,
The only concern I would have about getting a lot done on the field before the pump track is we're gonna have to go clear across it with the material.
Yeah.
But at least if you had funding, you would know that you could get things started, right?
Yeah, and we can
Start painting.
Exactly.
and Fence repair, you know.
bleachers,
Yeah.
So there's small projects that can be done in the pocket.
Yep.
You motion.
Yep.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve the Bartley Field Restoration Project.
Now, they've applied for $5,000. Is that what you're approving? Is that what you want to make a motion for? Said the total cost of the project falls between $36.75 and $47.55 with the trucking. It seems likely, as with most construction projects, we will incur some unforeseen expenses Therefore, we are requesting an allocation of $5,000 for ARPA funds.
I mean, an allocation is just
An
not to
allocation.
exceed, right?
Right.
And so
So
we'll keep track of
keep track
payments
of what
and,
the invoices
and,
is.
right.
And if that's what we pay,
So let's say not to exceed $5,000.
okay?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
There you go.
Going to be a busy summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Highways.
We can also talk about the inaugural baseball game we're going to hold there too. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Glenn, you on?
No.
He's not on?
He's not on. I can bring you up to date, I think, pretty well. The grant work on Kittredge Pasture and Tattle Street, the initial area of Tattle Street off Tyson Road has been completed, stone are in. The only thing left to do there is seeding and mulching, which will be done tomorrow morning, and that will be completed. And that was the one that was due by June 30th, so we're in good shape there. Going beyond that, I'm waiting on Chris Jurek right now to get a hold of me for a site visit on the next round of grants and aids funding. And that project has to be done by September 30th. However, we
23.
haven't even received the authorization
Oh,
to
brother.
proceed yet, but we're just trying to get these sites located. And hopefully that's going to happen this week.
Yeah, Otis is gone.
Huh?
Otis is gone.
He hasn't left yet though, has he?
Leaves
23rd,
June 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
Okay, Glenn's gonna try to get in touch with him.
Yeah, that was on that email that he didn't get from you to learn how to update the segments. The other thing is we have a issue with the grader.
With the what?
With the grader.
With the grader, okay.
Yeah, we have antifreeze in the oil, which is not really a good thing.
What was Glenn thinking?
Engine trouble.
But it's a very minor amount right now, so Glenn is keeping track of it and changing oil and doing stuff like that. I talked with Chris over here at Waters Construction. He does work on all that type of equipment. His comment to me was, he said, if it's a small amount, Bob, I wouldn't worry a lot about it, and if you can get through until winter, when you're not gonna be using the grader, because I'm gonna need it for a while in order to investigate, and you probably know, Gordy, but investigate, pull the motor, find out exactly where it's leaking.
All right.
So, that's where we're at. We're monitoring it, but we are beginning to lose power.
Probably head gasket.
Well, I asked him about that, and he said that that would be a possibility, but he thinks it's not likely.
Okay.
He thinks it's seeping by the sleeves. Might be sleeping.
Okay, yep.
Seeping by the
Rings,
sleeves.
rings are gone, yeah.
At 13.
How many hours?
13, 14,000.
Yeah.
So that's about it on highways. Mark or Glenn or both will be, as long as we're moving ahead with this, they will be sifting that material to get about 100 yards put up ahead. So
Okay.
when the folks
nice.
are ready for it, we can start delivering it as fast or as slow as they wish.
Great.
But
Great.
that'll take them some time. Because
Yeah.
Screen it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any word on cleaning the bridges, the new bridges up in South Reading?
I have not, Glenn has not mentioned it, and I haven't asked a question. That, I'm remiss on that.
Okay.
So I should get after him about that. They've been cleaning culverts, both the header and outlet ends.
Okay. Good.
And the new truck is still sometime in July for the chassis.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
You have anything on highways, Bob?
I don't. I do want to come back, if you don't mind, to one thing on the ARPA projects before we move on after highways. Last time we talked about the potential
potential for hiring some tech support to help with all of this. And I think, Bob, you said that you were going to talk with some of your cohorts in other towns to see how they handled it. I didn't know if you had any of those discussions or not yet.
I've left a couple of messages and I haven't gotten a reply.
Okay.
So the answer is no.
Okay.
I don't have any information for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that it on highways?
That's all I've got.
Okay, Windsor County Sheriff's contract.
You got a copy?
I don't have a copy of it.
Well, there you go. Was that the original?
I have,
Oh,
Jim.
there you go, Gordy.
Huh?
You can mark it up even. It's not the original.
You do whatever
Okay.
you want with that one.
Have you read this?
Yes.
I haven't seen that one yet.
I sent it on to you guys.
I commandeered it today because she doesn't email me anymore.
We have a new select board email address that I hear works really well if you guys check it.
Is that where you put it?
Yes. I'm sending it once.
My
I'm
bad.
looking at that right now, and I do not see it.
Aha.
Well, it's there. It was a while ago that it was sent.
Yeah.
Had this for a couple of weeks anyway, so. Check your spam mail.
No spam in that one
They're
yet.
providing 10 to 14 hours per week, which will be documented on a monthly basis as set forth herein. Town shall provide the sheriff's department with goals, objectives regularly that they anticipate will need law enforcement action. Patrol activities shall be scheduled to achieve these goals and objectives, in addition to answering calls for service. Quarterly performance reports will be provided to assess the goals, objectives, performance, as well as discussions between the parties to discuss any issues or concern in order to keep a good working relationship.
I don't know if you,
Is this any different from the last contract?
It's a
What's
little-
changed?
it's a little bit different, Bob, in the last contract, they billed us by the hour that they were here. This contract, it's a flat rate per month.
$333, $3,332 per month.
And it's a flat rate. Callista has an issue, they don't want to invoice us, and she needs an invoice, so she'll have to work that out.
What they want is, the town agrees to pay the sheriff's department in full each month by the 10th of the month without the need to receive an invoice.
Without what?
Without the need to receive an invoice.
Okay.
I don't like that. I need an invoice for every bill that goes out of here. I have an issue with that.
So we set the budget at $40,000 for the sheriff's department, and that's what they're charging us. $40,000 divided by 12 is.
That's how they come up with that number.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how they come up with that, but I don't see why they couldn't write up an invoice. That's not a very big deal, is it?
I questioned them on that and said that we would still receive an invoice. He said, so what's the point of having that in there?
Mhm.
Well, we just want our money before you get the invoice. I told him no.
Could they do a blanket invoice with 12 payments listed on it?
They probably could,
That would take care of that issue.
but then you still want to report it, like you were
What's that?
getting. You would still want to report, like you were getting them.
Oh, yeah, still want the report, but that would take care of the invoices.
Yeah,
Yep.
they said they'd provide that report.
Other than that, I think it's all the same.
Pretty much.
So pretty much the same level of service, just a different way of billing.
Yeah,
Correct.
they-
Okay.
We used to try to get 12 hours a week, Bob, and they're saying 10 to 14, which, I mean, you can't really fault them for that.
Are we still getting a portion of tickets written? How does that work?
I don't know what the current rate was. We used to get 87.5%
Yep.
of all tickets written. They dropped it to what, 60%?
Yeah,
They-
and they already did.
They dropped it to 60%, so our revenue went from
Went down.
paying over half of the sheriff's department down to paying.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at your treasurer's report, civil filings last month, we received $89.50.
Yeah, so it's,
Well, that's good. That means people aren't speeding, right?
or they're not setting up, they're not
Right.
doing the speed
We
checks.
did get, I just received, for this month, it was 300 and something dollars.
Okay,
So it went up a little bit.
It's not gonna offset much of the
Right.
cost anymore.
right. Yep, it's not going to pay for our solar array.
No,
Got it, okay.
So that's not the copy we signed.
no,
That's
she's
okay.
got, she's got that.
She has,
It's the copy you signed, Gordon.
yeah,
Only you.
only me.
Only you, lucky dog.
The one thing that they did ask for, and I would mention, they want a single point of contact. It's in there from the town, which obviously would be
Be the
you.
chair, yeah.
Unless you were out of town and said Bob H. or Bob A., would you call him back on this issue or
Yeah.
whatever, so.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that you folks can't approach the sheriff's department if you have a issue of your own that's not town-related, so to speak. But for town business, they want one point of contact.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there anything in the, I guess in this contract, and maybe in past, does the town have any say in where and when, what hours of the day those, in this case, 10 to 14 hours are spent? Or is it at the sheriff's department discretion as long as it's within the confines of the town of Reading?
The way it's been set up so far is that's the way it works. They come in and post where they think they should be. They try to go at random locations and stay in the 12-hour range. Under the previous sheriff, we had 12 hours set up. These guys are doing 10 to 14, so it's same parameters. But if we see an issue, we can also always approach them and say, hey, could you concentrate on these areas?
And have they been responsive to that in years past?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that's led you to think otherwise with the new sheriff, that there'd be less of a level of response?
Nope.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So
Need a motion?
I move that we sign the contract with the sheriff's department and move forward.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. STR discussion. We had an issue of dogs barking up in Hammondsville. I think this is what prompted this discussion. And Lisa's given us quite a lot of information on what was going on because of the barking dogs. I think she got involved that way, right? Let me start with the first one, June 1st, May 25th. This is May 25th, Lisa wrote, when I followed up with Gosha last night, she indicated she had been able to in on her STR in Reading due to finishing leasing agreements and making phone calls. When I drove by at 8, there was a car there in the lot, so I assumed the animals were being taken care of and all was quiet. She also indicated if she received any more calls on the dogs, that she would contact the sheriff, as I will be out of town myself tomorrow and throughout the weekend. I too will call the sheriff and refer them to Gosha if I receive any other further complaints. I would also like to add that this situation would have been particularly difficult if I did not know the landlord personally and had no way to contact her. Perhaps revisiting the STI registration would be beneficial.
What has transpired recently, Lisa? Anything?
So I was initially called by a neighbor in that area about the dogs that had been barking for quite several nights. We couldn't hear them from our house, but then once we were aware of them, we could hear them really well. The person who was supposed to be taking care of the dogs was walking around asking people if they had cigarettes that he could take from them, that he had no money, no way to reach the tenants, nothing to feed the dogs. So that sort of, alerted me that something strange was going on. Eventually what happened was he took off, told a neighbor that he was done taking care of the animals. And so at that point, there was nobody there for 2 or 3 days. I finally talked Gosha into meeting me at the apartment, and we entered. The animals had no food or water. They were fighting with each other. Obviously were hungry and had not been cared for. During this time, I did stop the sheriff, Sergeant Leonard, and he was very helpful. Told me that if the dogs needed to be released, that he would meet with me and help me take care of the problem. I also spoke with Lucy McKenzie Humane Society, and they said that they could take the dogs if that was necessary. One final thing that he did say is that I should try to contact the tenant because he'd been unresponsive to the landlord for multiple days. So I just called and left him a message. He didn't respond, but I said that he had a deadline of Friday of that week to come and at least let me know who was taking care of the dogs or come back himself or whatever, but we needed to know that there was somebody there taking care of the animals. And at that point that evening, somebody showed back up. I kept a good eye on it because I was driving by a lot, obviously, and there was somebody there. The tenant did come back finally that weekend and has since moved out.
Are the dogs gone, I assume?
Everything's gone.
They're gone. His lease was up this coming Friday as
It was
well.
supposed to be the 16th, so we obviously moved out sooner than later, but yeah, when we went into the apartment, I mean, shockingly, they, other than wrecking all of his furniture and chewing it all up, what he had done was left, there's a little deck that's attached to that apartment, and he left the door open so the dogs could just go in and out 24/7. And when they weren't being cared for, they were using that as, the facilities. And I mean, it reeked, it was disgusting, but it wasn't, they didn't trash the apartment itself, shockingly.
Yeah, so the dogs were standing out on the deck. barking.
Just barking their heads off for hours on end because nobody was there. And it was 3 of them. So, yes, so to that point, that is the reason why, from my point of view, if I didn't know Gosha, I would have no idea how to get a hold of Craig, I believe his name is, who owns the stone house. It would be really helpful if anybody who has a rental property just had one point of contact registered with the town or listed with the town, because I really spent a lot of hours on that, and I'm happy to do it. But on the other hand, if I was trying to track down who needed to help me, that would have made it way worse. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, 'cause fortunately, the dogs were not overly aggressive to the humans involved in there, because they were very hungry and agitated.
Yes, sir?
I just want to make a quick point. This is being sold to the public as an STR. This was a long-term rental. It was more than 30 days, and those people could have bought the house, and this would have been a problem. This wasn't an STR issue, and everybody keeps saying it's an STR problem. This was not an STR, this was a long-term rental. So I just want to make sure that's real clear, so it's not villainized that all STRs are the worst thing in the world.
Oh gosh, I don't think they're the worst thing at all, Rich.
Oh, no, I'm not. I wasn't really directing at you,
Yeah.
but this is being out there that STRs are now a problem, and this wasn't an STR issue. This was a long-term rental, so let's not make it an STR thing, because it wasn't. That's it.
Well, Rich, that's a good point. So for my own benefit, 30 days is the magic number?
That's right.
So
And
less than that's
longer.
STR, longer than that is...
Taxes have to be paid.
Okay,
Rooms
good to know.
It's
Thanks.
a permanent resident situation, and that's exactly what it is, and that's what it's advertised as now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am?
I'd just like to say that there's not bad, Richard's not really telling the whole story, that the planning commission was tasked to work on an ordinance about STRs, and the most minor, they came up with the most least thing that would affect anybody, and that is just a registry, so that everyone would know where they are, how to contact the police, where to go, you know, the fire, all of that, just to keep everybody on the same page. And that's what has been fought against. That's why I think you tabled the STR ordinance issue. So it can be a problem, and I think what the ordinance is trying to do is to avoid a problem.
It's a safety issue. And I don't think anybody has a problem with the registry. I mean, for Vanderbilt, I have STR at 188 Reading Farms Road, my phone number is 802, blah, blah, blah. End of story. Not a problem. Nobody is saying that. What you guys proposed was, you have to have the parking, you have to have this, you have to have that, it has to conform to this. It was like a whole thing that it referenced. It wasn't just your name and number, so if you're gonna tell the truth, just be honest with what, they had a whole bunch of things that it referenced.
But none of those things got agreed upon. What got
Nothing
agreed
got agreed
upon,
upon.
what got agreed upon was that there should be a registry, period.
The state is going to put a registry in place, it's already in the house right now, and it's gonna be exactly that, name, phone number, and that's it.
Great, okay.
That is the form we proposed at the planning commission or something similar, but if you look at Chester, Undersfield, for example, as an excellent method. I'll just stop there.
So let me ask, if I wasn't aware of the work that's going on at the state level, I mean, how close is that?
It's in the house now, it's in committee, once it comes out of the house, it'll go to the Senate.
Sure, so, but it's in that process and we have no idea how long that's gonna
They said by July 1st. I doubt it happens because that's like 3 or 4 weeks away.
Right.
It's going to happen, and it's gonna be exactly what you want. If everybody wants the STRs to give their name, number, phone number, I don't think anybody would care about
Sure,
that. But
no.
putting it with a bunch of other stuff, I think is totally unjust.
Well, one of the questions is if you have an STR and overuse of septic systems, that is one. And there are numerous ones that guidelines from Chester and other towns have proposed.
But this isn't Chester, this is Reading, and we don't have a problem with it. And you're trying to make a problem, you're trying to make something that doesn't need to be addressed. And now suddenly there's this problem with this long-term rental, and it was, at the planning commission with Kathy, she was very upset reading this. And it was all about STRs, and it had nothing to do with an STR. So I think personally they're trying to villainize the STR to push this legislation, and it's not
I
right.
think that's an over-exaggeration. No one's trying to villainize an STR. Everyone knows that many people in town have STRs and they use them for income, and that's fine, that's perfect, that's great, it's wonderful. But I think that for the sake of safety, for the sake of noise, for the neighbors, like, you know, there just needs to be some guidelines. Nobody's making villains out of people that have STRs.
Okay,
Just make a list of people's name, address, telephone number, how to get a hold of them.
understood.
No problem.
But not just for SDRs. I think what they're asking is they want anyone who rents their house out, they want a list, an emergency contact list. So they want to.
So when you say they, are you saying, who's they in this instance?
Well, what's being conflated is the STRs with people who are renting their property. If the dogs were barking at,
Wherever, right? You want to know, who do I go, how do I find out who's there so I can,
whose house is it?
Exactly.
They're renting it out.
Yeah,
And now they
I
want
get it.
everyone to disclose whether or not they're renting their house out, part-time, full-time,
Right.
long-term, short-term. And that's just another step of getting involved in what everyone's doing.
So you're saying they is who?
What's being proposed.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
There's
I'm
not-
Sarah Kowalski, I live in South Reading.
Hey, Sarah.
And I had the privilege of serving on the governor's housing commission between 2014 and 2018.
Nice.
And the State Department of Public Safety brought forward proposals around a statewide rental registry. Any rental property in the state. It was the folks that deal with fire and policing, that were the folks that were behind this. And legislation has been introduced every year, up and through, including this year, and it's been defeated in the state legislature every single year. I'm interested in the notion that there's something now, because the legislature in fact is over for this year, and only things that have been passed by the legislature and vetoed by the governor are the only things that are getting acted on before the end of this month. So if something was passed, then my suspicion is it is a statewide rental registry, but I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I printed it out, just, it is in the House right now.
So it would have to be, it would have to, it would be the next session, it won't be happening this year.
Right, that's what I said, it said July 1st, which I don't think is gonna happen, but that's what it says
If
in
it
the
wasn't
bill.
already passed,
Right.
it won't happen for this year, and just commenting, it's been defeated year after year after year, despite the support from people who don't have a vested interest in property, who have an interest in safety.
That's a great perspective, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, again, I know I'm playing the new guy card here. And I know you guys have dealt with this before. It sounds like there was some miscommunication in the past where the Planning Commission brought forward something for the select board information.
Yep.
And not necessarily to vote on it, but you guys decided to table it at the time. Okay. Does it make sense for us to revisit this? There sounds like there's enough information or concern out there.
Well, I guess I sympathize with what Lisa went through, I really do. But it's one instance.
Right.
So I'm not sure that warrants a full-blown town-wide ordinance. But I'm more than willing to have more discussion on it, if that's.
I don't disagree, Bob. I also think it makes sense to have, like Richard was talking about, something very basic about just a registry of who's renting.
Well, a
again,
registry is fine, but you've got to have some guidelines as to who registers and who doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, it's not that simplistic.
This is what they propose, short-term registration form. Which just gives information.
Yeah, owner's mailing address, owner's phone, manager's name and email.
And these were the draft
guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, to your point, Bob, if we were to do something, this form here, you could almost stop at the end of manager's phone number.
Yeah.
You know, in this particular case, Lisa happened to know who the manager was.
Right.
She's been doing this.
Yeah. And we acknowledge that was not a short-term rental, but it was just, it could have been depending on just the length.
Yep.
Right.
Right. Now, Craig was made aware of it because I copied him on some of the issues that were going on there myself, because he and I became very good friends through another project for the zoning administrator, and have stayed in touch even though he's put the property up for sale. So I made sure that he was aware of it. I made sure that he was talking to Gosha and she was talking to him to keep him up to date.
Yep.
And they actually investigated eviction. And with the complications affiliated with eviction, they decided it would be better to manage the situation and just let the lease run out, which would have been this coming Friday. But to Lisa's point, I guess it's sort of run out on its own already.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what we do, but I'm willing to have more discussions if there's more issues.
If there's more issues. So, I mean, again,
that
coming
was
in.
the reason we tabled it, because there hadn't been issues at that time.
Okay. I guess I'm struggling with this because I can certainly see there being an issue and the neighbor doesn't know who to turn to. And if we just had a registry, something like this, where they can call Callista and say, who is renting this? And because we have an issue. I don't know. Or if there is an issue, does a neighbor simply call the sheriff's office?
Depends on what the issue is.
Yeah,
Or the animal control officer.
or the animal control
You
officer.
know, like in the last case.
Yeah,
My concern initially, when I see the initial complaint, was that maybe somebody was just staying there. It seemed to be a guy that was wandering around asking people for cigarettes
Yeah.
and stuff like that while they were parked, waiting for the school bus. And that bothered me immensely because who is this guy?
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, he was a creeper.
Huh?
He was a creeper.
But he wasn't the renter.
No, he was the house sitter for the renter.
So I see,
What we had was a renter that had a house sitter taking care of his dogs.
right.
The
Correct.
renter created an STR.
That almost becomes a sublease or something.
Yeah.
I see, so I see two things. I see the potential that there could be an issue here, but I also see that our planning commission sounds like they did a lot of work to put together a proposal for us that we tabled and, really didn't take any action on. I don't know if you had discussion on it. Did we go back to them with, we think this is a little too much, maybe if we pare this down, or?
Their point, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, beyond that, good planning needs good data and good facts. And if the town has facts about what the housing situation is like in town, in other words, if we have rental properties where there are renters who are able to work in, say, Windsor or Springfield, that's a good thing. This used to be a bedroom community. And if the data shows that most of the housing begins to drift toward short-term rentals as a source of income for people, then the Planning Commission has to plan for that and try to get affordable housing back on track.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
This is Mark Corbin on Zoom. I have one particular neighbor I've never been able to get in contact with, and when I went to Callista about it, she indicated that some people opt to not include information other than a mailing address. So in a situation like this, you don't have a phone number for anyone, any owner, let alone a short-term renter or a long-term renter. And I'm wondering if maybe the town should encourage some sort of registration for all owners so that the town has a email address that has a phone number, a cell phone number, and a point of contact for emergencies. I think that that's something that might address this. And secondly, there have been a number of people who have been attending these planning commission meetings, and I've attended almost all of them, and I have asked, what is the reason for the registration? And we were told, well, there could be a problem. And this issue of registration isn't just a registration, it's permeating all aspects of the town plan, whether or not they want to allow duplexes, multifamily dwellings, and putting stipulations that they can't be used for short-term renters. I had a personal zoning variance hearing where I was putting on a lean-to shed, and the first question I was asked by the planning commission member was, do I intend to use my home as a short-term rental? And I think that that was totally inappropriate. I don't know where it was coming from. And this issue with short-term rentals right now in Reading, I look at most of the homes available, they are luxury homes. They're not taking housing from workforce. And I think we have, in a lot of ways, created a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Thank you.
Well,
Well, Bob, if you want, we can look this over and see if we want to ask the planning commission to edit it. Bring something back to us.
What do you think, Bob? You look like you're anxious to say something.
Well, planning commission turned it over to the select board to adopt an ordinance. Okay?
That was, I don't think that's correct. Right.
Right here, the short-term rental.
I know, but as I understand from talking to the planning commission, they presented that as information to support a discussion. Steve wasn't here to support the discussion at the time, but
Yes,
Go ahead.
it was
Okay.
submitted as a draft or comment
Yep,
to see what the select board thought about it, what improvements they would suggest to what we submitted, and instead, we never heard anything back. There were no suggestions made, no ideas of what to improve or what to omit, nothing. So yes, if you want to revisit that now and take a look and see what seems acceptable to you, what suggestions you would have to improve it, that would be much appreciated. That was the intent when we submitted it in the first place.
so can I ask then the planning commission, whoever is speaking on behalf of them right now, if we were to, since it's been a little while, there's been other discussions, does the planning commission want to take another cut at this before we have a discussion at the select board?
No, we
Would you
like
change
your
something? You
feedback.
like what you have right now? You wouldn't change anything based on the discussions that have taken place?
Anything is up, any options are open. We were looking for your feedback before we went back to work on it.
And that's still the case now?
This is our initial draft, we're looking for comments.
I know, but I think this was probably a year ago, something like that. I don't know how long ago it was. I just didn't know if, based on discussion since that time, would you want to make any changes
We have
before?
not even looked at it since we were shot down.
Okay,
They don't want to change any of it, they actually want to add more to it. Because at the last meeting, they were talking about making anybody who's renting their house out and they live there, they be not able to even do it. They don't want any rentals in the town. They talk about affordable housing and it's like, it's not even true. I don't even think they care about affordable housing.
okay. Richard, yeah, I hear you and I can obviously see the frustration. We'll let the planning commission speak for the planning commission. Okay, so I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Okay,
So-
if I may continue.
Please.
I'll take Kathy's words that it was a suggestion for us to respond to them.
Okay.
Going back to creating an ordinance by the select board, it's the responsibility of the select board to determine what that ordinance is going to say or not say.
Okay.
If we wish to involve the PC, then or anybody else, we're more than within our right to do so.
Okay.
But once it was turned over to us, we could have made any changes we wanted to
Oh,
that
certainly.
without talking to anybody.
Yeah.
Or we could have talked to everybody. So, and the reason for doing that, there was a lot of discussion prior to their sending that to us, was do we put it in the zoning ordinance? Do we create a policy? Do we create an ordinance?
Yeah.
And the feeling was that an ordinance or a policy by the select board was easy to change. You didn't have to have a townwide vote because you weren't changing the zoning ordinance, et cetera. So that's why, one of the reasons why it came to us
Yep.
for an ordinance, just to bring you up to date.
Thank
Is
you.
that correct, Kathy?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. I mean, I don't want to, I feel like I'm kind of butting my head up against you guys here, but I guess I want to spend some time looking at this. It sounds like you've already looked at it and have made up your minds or have any.
It's relatively simple, Bob. You should take it and read it.
Yep.
Take
Okay.
it home and read it.
study
All
it
right.
up. Yep.
So I guess I'll take that for action
And
then.
obviously,
I'll look at
there's
this
pros and cons
and
from
then
each different parties.
talk about it next meeting.
But,
Yep.
yeah, for the next meeting. But if we're going to do that, we've got to listen to both sides of the argument. And a registration per se doesn't necessarily require an ordinance. I don't think.
Okay. What would it require?
Well, we would put it out there to anybody that is using their home or portion thereof for a short-term rental to please contact us with the contact name of anybody if there's an issue.
Okay.
You can't make people do it.
No, you can't make
No.
people do it, you can't make them do that.
So when you say you can't make people do it, I mean, if there's an ordinance and people don't do it,
Who
what's the,
enforces
yeah,
it and-
yeah.
And how?
Well, that's when you show up with a baseball bat, right?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
It's probably worth more, I'm sure it's worth more discussion.
Okay.
That'd be my guess.
All right. I'll look at it and we'll discuss it more next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Item F, appointment to fill the vacant PC member. We have one member that is resigned on the 5-board member. So presently, we have 4 members. What's that?
2 have resigned.
Steve Strait has not resigned until July. Who else resigned?
Stephen.
He's resigning in July.
He's
Presently,
still here.
we have 1 member.
I'm sorry, yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Well, what happened to your vote to increase the board to 7? If we're no longer a 5-board member, you voted for 7.
We did.
So it's not a vacancy for a 5-board member, it's a vacancy on a 7-board member. Okay, I just wanted to get that in, because you said 5.
So we need 3.
Yep. If we stay with the 7-board member.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you voted to go to a 7-board member.
No, I don't think we ever voted to go to the 7-board member. We asked for input from the planning commission for a 7-board member, and we got nothing.
What do you mean?
You rejected the planning board's input.
Yes.
They were very clear.
We took a
Yes.
vote.
At the last meeting, you said the planning board would not have any input. It was, you guys
It's
said
in
it.
our minutes, it's in our minutes that it's a 7-board member now, rather than 5. It's in our minutes that it's in
We haven't
It
made
is.
that motion.
We did, yeah, we did do that, Bob.
We did do that.
We did do that, yeah. We did do that, we completely acknowledge. We did vote, I think it was the 2 ago.
Okay.
2 ago right now that we voted to go to a 7-board. Then, then Jean dropped out.
And Stephen has resigned.
And Stephen has resigned, but Stephen said he will stay on through July.
One more meeting.
Right. So it seems like we have to decide, are we going to stick with 7 or are we going to go back to 5? And then what are we doing about the
I have
vacancies?
a suggestion how you can get to 7. If you address the comments that were made at the last select board meeting about the planning commission, the comments that were negative, after all the volunteers, they put in many hours, much effort, the effort is thwarted, work is tabled, even somebody asked for $20 reimbursement for data storage and it was denied. So I don't understand the dynamics here between the select board and the planning commission, and I, as a resident of Reading, I would like to see it stop. So maybe it needs to start with an apology from you for comments that were made at the last meeting.
Especially to Stephen Strait, who is a very long-time member of the Planning Commission. And I'm a 40-year resident of Reading. And I was on the Planning Commission, I was on the zoning board. I was chair of the zoning board for a while. So I know Steve, and I know how diligent he is about his efforts. And I think the treatment he received was petty. From the select board, he came to a meeting and asked for $20 that he had already spent to expand computer data storage. And he was just outright denied.
No.
And I think it was petty. I think
He submitted an invoice
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're getting that information about the $20.
I got the information from Steve.
Okay.
Steve submitted an invoice and received payment.
Was it recent?
He hasn't submitted anything recently. In the past, he has submitted invoices and been paid. And he has not submitted anything recently, or he would have been paid. It's in their budget, on the line item in the budget. The payment commission line item in the budget. If that would be up to him to submit an invoice to be paid. I can't pay him, but I don't know.
Yeah, they were having trouble trying to get storage, right? And you gave them
We went on and we bought them more
funding so
storage.
they could have the storage.
We did, that was all set up with Gene so that they could have more storage, and it was done through the town's credit card.
So why was it rejected at this meeting? Outright.
There's
It was never rejected.
It was never
There's
presented.
nothing been rejected.
$20, I was at that meeting, there was no $20 bill that was presented at that meeting.
As well, and you were there?
I wasn't there.
All right,
Anyway,
Well, I still think that Steve Strait is owed an apology from the select board for the way he's been treated.
Well, I think what happened at today's meeting in general is a great example of what my observation. You have volunteers from the energy, residents that volunteered and did a great job and gave you great input. And everyone, had a positive reaction to that. The Recreation Commission also volunteered, residents want to do, help the town and help the select board. And everyone cheered and yelled. But when it comes to the planning commission, the same people with the same interests to improve the town, there seems to be friction, and it's not right. It's all the same energy from your townsfolks that are giving you the help to decide what you need to do. But it seems that you've isolated the planning commission separate from the other committees that help us all out.
I will offer that I just said, I think the Planning Commission did an excellent job on presenting the short-term rental information, and I want to digest it and understand it, and I don't discard any of that information. So please don't say that, the whole select board is doing that. I understand that there are obviously some feelings and some situations that have happened in the past, but can we we all have to move on together here. I've talked with Steve personally, and I understand what's going on in Steve's head, and I understand why he's resigning. He's been doing this for a long time. He's been doing a fantastic job at it for a long time. And it's really going to be a loss to our town for that. I don't know. I can't speak for the whole select board, and I never will. I'll speak for myself. I have no issues with the planning commission, and I only want to build up the relationships that we have here. I don't want to tear any down. So I will offer that.
I'll be really quick, so I know you're probably tired of hearing me talk. The problem with the planning board, as I've seen it over the last 2 years, energy boards and the other boards, they take the town and they try to make it better for all of us. The planning commission, in my opinion, and a lot of people I've spoken to, don't feel they're being fair. A good leader takes all of the information and then comes down and gets the best decision they possibly can. When there is something in front of the planning board, in my opinion, they already know the vote before they sit down. They don't want to hear from you or you. They know what they're going to do. And if you watch all the tapes over the last 20 months, that's how it goes down. They are all the same person. They don't think about anybody outside of their little realm. And that's why there were so many people interested in the planning board. If everybody was so happy about the planning board, why were there 4, 5, 6 people wanting to get on when nobody's ever wanted to get on before? It's because people are not very happy with some of their decisions. You don't have to agree with me, but half the town does agree with me. Half the town doesn't, but half the town does.
And we're always gonna have differences of
That's
opinions.
right.
There's always gonna be differences of opinion. It's a matter of how we handle these differences of opinions that allows us to function well together. Okay? So we, the select board now, have a couple of decisions to make. Are we gonna keep this board at 7? Are we gonna drop it down to 5? And how are we gonna fill the positions that are available to us?
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I had a long conversation with Steve Straight after we got his resignation. And I didn't feel animosity from Steve towards me, and the select board was never mentioned. What we did discuss was that he had been chair of the Planning Commission for 30 years, maybe longer. He wasn't sure of the exact time frame, and he's got a lot of home projects. I accept that fact. I myself stepped away from the chairman's job a couple of years ago and convinced Gordy that he should be the new chairman.
A little arm twisting. Arm twisting.
And Steve's comments was similar to that. I did encourage him to rethink his resignation from the Planning Commission next month. I'm not sure that I got very far, but I did encourage him. He and I have worked very closely together ever since I took over the zoning administrator's job in 09 or 10 when Charlie passed away. As a default to the select board, we had to have one person do it, and it fell on me as the chair. Steve and I have worked really close, and I have bounced a lot of things off him, and he has off me. So I would like anybody in this room that doesn't want him to resign, and I'm sure it's probably the greater part of all of us, to contact him and encourage him to stay on as a member, because I have done that. That said, the issue here is we have 4 members today. I don't know what we'll have come July 5th or 6th, but right today we have 4 members. We need a 5th. So I'm going to make the following motion. I would like to move that because of his interest and because of the time he has spent working with both the Select Board and the Planning Commission, that we appoint Stacy Gallagher to fill the open slot on the Planning Commission, replacing Jean Goodhouse. And because the other people that were interested have... Goldsboro, sorry. Jean Goldsboro. And because the other 3 members that were originally interested have withdrawn their names, that we table the thought of going to 7 members at this time. That's my motion.
Well, let me,
What?
Bob, can I ask you to, maybe we make those 2 separate
Okay.
motions, because
My motion is that we appoint Stacy Gallagher to fill the open position effective immediately.
I'd second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I
Further,
One question. Was there an interview process for any of the candidates?
the
And
other,
then
the other
secondly,
candidates
are
all
any
sent us notes withdrawing their names.
Members?
The other candidates that had put their name in all sent us notes withdrawing their names. Why would we have an interview process when we only have 1 left?
Because I think you discussed an interview process.
Yeah, I think you said that we will.
That was when we had 4 candidates for 2 positions that we were considering.
Still,
Most
I mean,
appointments in town have never had an interview process.
Well, I think, okay.
And we've never done it here before either, Kevin, you know that,
For a new member.
for appointed members.
Right.
As I recall, there were 2 people that were gonna get interviewed, not 4. 2 people, because I was one of those people, and I dropped out before you. I dropped out when Jean resigned, so it was
another
four.
person.
And then Madeline Coletti dropped out, so it was two. It was Stacy and it was Jeffrey Wiswell that we were gonna interview with the planning
What?
commission.
And Jeff dropped out.
Right. So it wasn't four.
It started at 4.
It started at 4, then went to 3, then went to 2. Yep.
Can
And
I
now it
also
went to
add
1.
that, I mean, I know it's not, you're not running a business necessarily, but if you've got a job opening and you've got one applicant, if they're, and I mean no ill to Stacy or anybody, just generally speaking, if they are not the best person for the job, you don't just hire them. Like, unless you are in dire straits and can't function, which I'm not sure if that's technically the case here, you don't just take the first or the only thing that comes along. I would assume there should be some modicum of a process, whether it's from the select board in conjunction with or exclusively with the committee. Like, you don't just take the one that's left, right? You leave it open even for some period of time.
Stacy's been putting his time in for the last year and a half, so he has some qualifications.
I'm saying on principle.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything against Stacy. I'm just saying on principle, the comment about we had only one applicant left, to me, that is not grounds for hiring somebody.
I don't think we intended it to be taken that way, Jerry. Yeah, I don't think we would just take any old person. Like, I would never hire you for that position, so, regardless, so.
I would never.
All right.
Sarah?
I'd like to comment as a new person to the community, we've lived here just over 2 years. So what I'm hearing you say is you actually do have a process, and that process is people who know each other, which is a very acceptable form of decision-making in many communities. But if you're looking to the future, is it time to maybe have a little bit more structured kind of processes for important roles in the community? And I see planning commission as an important component to community governance, to town government. And if you want to be more open perhaps to younger people coming into the community, to those who maybe don't have a long history of relationships and hanging out and being able to volunteer for a long time before they step forward, maybe having a little bit more structured process of inviting people to step forward and then having a way to get to know them, which is not only the old way. I think the old way is just fine, but I'm wondering if it's enough of a way to broaden and deepen community engagement.
How would you suggest we get them to step forward?
I couldn't be more
I say, how would you suggest that we get somebody to step forward?
I think that the town, through the ARPA experience, I learned that the town does have these 2 great vehicles. One is the Informer, and the other is the use of front porch forum. And it seems that many people in the community have found one or both of those as ways to hear about things. And when there are openings, to not just say, oh, there's an opening, but to say what the opening is and what's involved, and give people a way to both learn about the opportunity and then present themselves with their interest, and that does speak to an interview process. Whether it's 1 candidate or 10 candidates, it's a little more cumbersome than just signing folks up who you've gotten to know over the years and trust. But it can add new people to the mix.
And I
Call
would.
me in for an interview. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
I would agree with you almost 100%, but January, February, March informers all had a list of open positions that we needed to appoint. The only people that we got that even contacted us was the ones for the Planning Commission, no one else. Lisa came to us as animal control officer, as needing an animal control officer and willing to do the job. We didn't go out and say, okay, we've got 1 candidate for the animal control officer. Is there anybody else in town that wants to be considered as well? She stepped up after many years of not having an animal control officer. So I'm not sure what more we can do other than post it in Front Porch Forum and post it on the Informer that we're looking for positions. And if somebody is really interested in becoming, taking a position in town, doesn't it behoove them to let us know in which position they're interested in?
But what I was, absolutely, I don't disagree a bit with that, but then it's what happens next. It's that greater transparency and inclusion by doing things like having interviews and having a chance to have a conversation. I think frankly, something like the Planning Commission really has a lot of philosophy and point of view behind it. And to know more than just that you trust someone, but to really understand what their point of view and perspective is, like for example, in terms of how it lines up with the town master plan. And what do they know about that, and how do they think about approaching it? I think those are important kinds of things. And there will be clearly more opportunities going forward. And I think that's what I'm speaking to, is not what's been done so far, but in terms of how to work going forward.
Good.
So just a suggestion.
Maybe what we should do, since you have not rescinded the 7-person board, is to put again in the Reformer and the Front Porch Forum that there are 2 vacancies available on the Planning Commission, and see what happens.
When we proposed this, the Planning Commission turned it down flat. So I suggested that we table the 7-member board, go with a 5-member board. If Steve does in fact resign, which sounds likely, but if we can't talk him out of that, then we will have an open position and we can move forward again with asking people to step forward if they're interested.
But Bob, the way we left things 2 meetings ago was the Planning Commission recommended staying with a 5-person board. We voted to expand it to 7. So right now it's at 7. Right now it's at 7. So I think that we either need to, we can wait and see what happens with Steve, but we need to make a decision. Do we leave it at 7 or do we go back to 5?
I just made a motion that we table the position, the 7-member board position discussion.
Table it, meaning we leave it at 7 and we'll revisit this next month?
We'll revisit it when it's necessary. If we don't get any applications for Steve's position, there's no sense in trying to find 7 when you can't find 1.
So I just want to be...
Will you extend the same conversation to Jean, asking her to come back too? She's a very integral part of the Planning Commission. And I know she resigned under circumstances she was not happy about. So will you have a conversation with her the same as you had with Steve?
If Steve resigns, sure.
But
I'll tell you, I'd be glad to have a discussion with Jean. I had an exchange with Jean over this, and maybe it was, she didn't share that it was because of what had happened at the meeting. So I'll just leave it at that. Maybe she wasn't completely open on that one. Yeah, I'd be glad to. I would absolutely be glad to. And if Annie's still on, please pass that on. And I'd love to talk to Jean about this. Okay. So yeah, glad to do that.
Mark?
I have a question. I haven't been able to find online what is the town's policy. I know that there are a couple non-residents who are appointed officials on various committees. I was wondering, would the select board entertain a non-resident to be on the planning commission?
I've never given that any thought.
No. Is that acceptable?
I would say, don't make a policy right here without thinking it through, but maybe we take it on a case-by-case basis and talk to the person, do an interview, see what the relationship is.
I believe if you check the statutes on planning commissions, they have to be residents of the town, but I can double check.
Okay.
Committees are another issue. You can appoint a committee member who is a non-resident.
Right. So my motion stands. Stacy Gallagher effective immediately.
And I think we seconded and passed that
Yeah,
one.
we did.
We did pass it?
We passed that.
We did pass that one.
Yep.
You want to make a motion to table from, you made the motion, to table
I made a
7.
motion to table the 7-member board at this point in time.
You can't take it.
Well, I guess, yeah, I'm struggling with that too, because right now we're at 7, so what does tabling mean? We don't.
We're not gonna consider it at
We're
this
not
point in
going
time.
Okay, so what we're going to, I guess the motion that we're doing is we're not actively going to try to fill the remaining 2 positions at this point.
Yep.
Okay? So we'll say that that's the motion, that we're not going to actively pursue filling the remaining 2
No,
positions
it's
at
not
this
a
point.
motion, it's a table.
I
I'm
have
tabling
a
the
question.
discussion.
I have a question.
Wait just a minute.
Yeah,
please.
let me make sure I understand this first. So I'm not, help me, Bob, on understanding the motion.
Same as
versus-
with the STR, we tabled it, we didn't bring it up again until tonight.
Okay?
So I'm tabling the 7-member discussion at this point in time.
No, I don't think we're disputing that we voted on 7. I think we're discussing filling the 2 vacant positions.
I'm tabling that
So you're
discussion.
tabling that discussion. Okay. So we're tabling it, meaning we're just not going to discuss it.
That's right.
Okay.
We're not gonna look for it. We're not gonna look for anyone.
We are not going to look for, we're not going to advertise for, we're not going to actively pursue filling those remaining 2 positions.
That's right.
Okay?
This time. Is that a second?
Yeah, I'm going to second that because frankly, I think that's what the Planning Commission was originally talking about before, where they wanted only 5, and now we're not actively trying to pursue those remaining 2 positions. Kevin?
Yes, thank you. If you do that, then people who are trying to recruit Steve back, he won't have a position. Is that correct?
He won't have what?
Why?
5.
He would be the 5th.
1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count today, okay.
So there's a motion on the floor
Well,
to table the pursuing the 7-member board.
Correct.
The planning
Question related.
Motion made and seconded.
I don't know if this was resolved, but only as an observer on, I think, 2 or 3 meetings ago, there was a concern around the number needed for a quorum because there was not a date associated with when moving to 7 members was going to take place. It was effective immediately. Therefore, they need 4 effective immediately as of 2 select board meetings ago. So I don't know if anybody on the planning commission has cleared this up with select board. I'm just curious because it stuck out in my head. That functionally means right now they still need 4, even though they don't have 2 individuals to fill the 7-member
No.
board. So
Jerry.
it may be worth for their benefit of running their meetings to reconsider the number, the head count.
Jerry.
And at least the timing associated with recruiting more.
A quorum is determined by the number of members officially on a committee or a commission.
It's
So
not,
if it's
not
5,
how big it is.
no,
Okay.
you can't set a quorum more than 1 over 50%.
Okay. Got it.
Okay,
Ready for the
but
vote?
then, yes, and I will second if it hasn't already been
You
seconded.
have seconded.
Yes.
I have second. Okay.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, other. Any others here tonight?
so what about appointing? Are you going to appoint? Never mind.
Quiet. We already did.
Yeah, you missed that part.
All right,
No others?
no others?
I move we go to executive session.
All right. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good discussion.